that people walk the trail and they have no clue. They don't see what's back here, or, you know, they have no idea. And it's fun too, because you get the families that come up with the kids, and the kids are looking and they're like, oh man, and most of the parents had no idea this was in their own backyard, like 5-minute drive from their home kind of thing. I love it. You're outside, you're fresh air, you're getting exercise, you're socializing, you have to be with a partner. It's just a good experience for everybody, right? Like, I'm all for more people coming out and more people joining the sport.
So we've got thousands of routes within an hour from us and all sorts of different difficulties.
It's taught me this in life, that no matter what situation you're in, if you keep your cool, there's always something that can be done. And you can bring that in many ways, those principles, over to life and learn, you know, through, you know, in a sense, just calming yourself, getting grounded, using a smart, you know, mountain sense or living sense, life skills.
It's a great family sport and it's a great recreational pursuit. It's something you can do into your 60s, 70s, and even 80s. It's a low-impact sport. Like I say, it's kind of like vertical yoga. It's strengthening and stretching at the same time, and it's a very active sport in your mind.
For me, climbing is really, it's a meditative sport. You know, the harder the climb, it seems the more relaxed you can be because you're just getting right into what you're doing.
The explosion to climb is due to the fact that people are realizing how fun the sport is. I want to go out and do something a little crazy and be safe at the same time, so.
There's freedom in it, in the sense that you get away from what isn't important, what you think is important often in life. And it's, you know, when I'm out here climbing, there really is a shutdown of everything else around me. And it's just the joy of movement, the joy of company, you know, the joy of being in landscape and in nature. That's a beautiful thing. You know, as climbing is getting more and more popular, those things are disappearing more, so you have to get more remote and you have to get deeper into the wilderness. But I do hope that the simple cragging, these areas like this, won't be too popular, that somehow we find a way not to, you know, overextend the magic that they have.
The future of climbing, it's in a growth stage just now, and I just don't see that changing. I think it's going to continue to grow.
You know, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, when I started climbing, there weren't many people doing it. It wasn't a very big activity. You can see just now, within the last few years, we had one climbing gym in the Okanagan Valley, now there's 4. The sport's growing at a pretty heavy rate.
Especially with climbing gyms, a lot of people being introduced to the sport through those venues. Those people then be seeking outdoor experiences. And I think in the park, we're just going to see more and more numbers coming to enjoy the park and explore climbing and experience the adventure.
I can see that if progression continues the way that it's going, within the next 10 to 15 years, then yeah, for sure we will have definite issues with crags being overwhelmed, lineups. I mean, the bluffs are definitely our biggest positive and negative because we have so many routes there and it attracts people from worldwide. So you get a lot more attention down there. I used to go there, believe it or not, and be able to go to the main walls like Doctor's Wall, Great White, the Grand Canyon, and you'd have the whole place to yourself.
All right, the horn will blow in a minute. Look for the red shirts for guides. Otherwise, have a great day. We're excited you're here.
Rock the Blocks Bouldering Fest, year 6. Yeah, we started quite a while ago with like 70 people. It was a local event. Just a matter of trying to get people out to explore the rock in here because we've been developing for years and we knew it was good. We wanted to get more people in, and it's growing since then every year to be way more people. We're well over 200 just today. And yeah, some of the strongest climbers in Canada come out each year, people from all over the world, so it's becoming a pretty cool event. So a lot of kids that maybe climb in the gym on a team or something like that, and this might be their first bouldering experience outside. This is probably like the best place for them to spend their first day climbing outside, because they're going to have a chance to be mentored by local developers who essentially set local ethics, and also with people from all over the world. So, you know, they're with experienced climbers, so they get a chance to experience what ethics looks like outside. They're not going to get to do that on a day if they just come out by themselves. So. Well, especially in a place like this, you know, it's a sensitive ecosystem. It sits under the snow for a lot of the year, but you know, it's a short season up here for growing, so it's a very special place geologically and as far as the ecosystem. So you know, it's nice to be careful. Keep the trails as is, one main trail. Don't be, you know, skirting all over the place. You don't want to have too much damage to the foliage, if any at all. We don't want garbage around. It's used by so many people that care a lot about it, so it's nice to keep it the way it is. Well, I mean, look at a day like today, and there's over 200 people in there right now. And if we're not careful, that in one day, that many people could easily affect the environment in here for the rest of the year or for multiple years. So if we're ethically sound and we're conducting ourselves with, you know, as little trace as possible in here, this area becomes then usable in the future in the same state for our kids and future generations.
I was out here 2 to 3 weeks ago. We came out for a 3-day journey, and I bet you we saw 140 people over 3 days. Steadily, people are hearing about the waterfall. Apparently a big selling feature was the rope swing, which was the main purpose of us coming out here today, was to take it down because somebody, like I said, on the weekend got injured. There was always the potential that somebody could come and use these ropes that are hanging and swing on them. I mean, you can't control people if you're not there to tell them, and even if you are, you still can't control them. I've been here many times and said, hey, you realize that's not a swing, and lo and behold, what do? They go running and put themselves 50, 60 feet in the air. And could have happened sooner, could have happened way more often. Thankfully, we survived 8 or 9 years before we had any incident, but I'm a big believer it only takes one. So far, I think people are receiving the place very well, and it's being accepted, and people are passionate about it and love it. I hope it stays that way.
I love looking around, seeing new rock, and when I see something, I'm like, well, I want to put a line on that.
So when you're looking for route development, that's kind of the thing. You think about what kind of climbs you enjoy doing, and then you go, oh yeah, that could go, that could go.
The point of bolting routes to me is so that other people can come and enjoy it. If you go put up one route and you're the only person that ever climbs it because it's a piece of junk, you're not really adding anything to the community.
You show up and find a nice secure station on the top of your cliff, and you work your way down most of the time.
Quite often, people out here, if you can get to the top, you'll set it from the top down, so you'll put up a station and hang a rope.
Clean off all the loose rock that could be potential hazard. And then we use a wire brush to scrub off any of the remaining lichen dirt and get it to the point where it's bare rock.
Like when you're looking at cleaning a route, I think the important thing is you don't want loose rock off. You don't want where a person's going to put their hand to come off and endanger the belayer below, right? So safety is one thing, but you don't want to over clean either. I mean, we're outside, right? There should be a few little hazards here and there. I don't think anything's terrible about that. In some ways, you can see people getting really excited and maybe overdeveloping an area and maybe trying to get everything done on a rock face, as opposed to, I think traditionally people would do a few routes and then leave some routes for the next generation. So you see a little bit of that, but again, who am I to say whether it's good or bad? There's tons of development that still can be done, and there's tons of maintenance that can be done. A lot of these climbs haven't been, they've been neglected a little bit.
Like rock that might not have moved 10 years ago or 20 years ago when they first bolted, but now it's moving.
There's no doubt that when you put up a new route, you are altering that landscape, and there is an impact for sure. The Skaha Bluffs area, we're developing a climbers management plan, and the goal is to stay within the park itself. There are other bluffs and things that we could develop outside of the park boundaries, but the parks have asked us to contain our activities within the park so that we don't alter other areas outside the park boundaries and displace wildlife that may be in those regions outside the park boundaries themselves. As a guide, it's always a double-edged sword. You're wondering, on the positive side, we're bringing people outdoors, they're recreating, they're getting off their chair or their couch, they're coming outdoors to find a new activity that they might become passionate about and explore and, lead a healthier lifestyle. But as we draw those people in, I find that what draws us here for me, is the nature that we're surrounded by, and we have an impact. And the more of us that are out here, even though we try to minimize our impact, we have an impact at the end.
We are concerned with how this area gets used because we want it to be sustainable for the future.
The next step of climbing, and because of the explosion of climbing, is going to be educating people who come from the gym. How do you behave outside? What is it that you're supposed to do and not supposed to do? Because especially from big cities, a lot of people might not have been exposed to this. These, crag cleanups, trail working days, and these education seminars, they're going on everywhere, and it's a great thing because it teaches people that, this is a finite resource and we need to look after it. So in 10, 15 years, when other people come, that this area doesn't look like it's been bulldozed and trashed, by a bunch of people who didn't care, that we've stuck to the trails, we picked up our garbage, we've tried to minimize our impact on the area because we do have a huge impact, and that's what climbers have started to realize, and henceforth those education programs have come forward.
We have to learn to educate ourselves to how do we respect this environment and how do we protect it, because this is part of the draw. If we lose this environment, then it takes away from the reason we come here to climb anyways.
Yeah.